everyone. My name is Andrew, editor over at hook'emheadlines.com. With me is Shane Black, contributor at hook'emheadlines.com. We are coming to you on Texas's bye week. So this is week 9 of the show, but we're not really going to be talking about Oklahoma State a whole lot, taking the bye week to look more at a higher level and look forward a little bit to the offseason, talk about the portal with the entrants heating up. We're getting to the point where we got anywhere between 3 and 6 entrants a day, at least to cap October, and then November will end up probably being a bigger month if the last 2 years is any indication. And then kind of talk about some of the portal needs for Texas, get into the recruiting trail a little bit because that'll impact how Texas looks at the portal numbers wise, some positional needs, and then both in terms of the Big 12 and college football as a whole, like who we think some of the bigger names in the portal could be, and what will define the portal this or next offseason. So mostly in 2023. Granted, you'll get a bunch of guys entering in December, so you'll kind of get that wave as well. But I'll go and start off here. Like I'm starting on the easy part here. If we're talking positional needs for Texas, like I think there's two that really stick out heading into the offseason. Both to me are on defense, and that's edge and safety. I mean, edge is going to be the big one for next offseason. Like Texas has to find someone, like with how good the interior defensive line has been through the first 8 weeks. Like with the bye week here, I've been looking at just stat after stat after stat that just proves that like Texas got like 5 guys that are NFL guys, and like that are dominating games week in and week out now. Like Texas didn't have that in the last few years. I don't know how long it's been since this level of edge play has been here, but interior defensive line, not edge. If the edge play was really good, this front 7 would be, like, I think one of the best in the Power 5. I might be overstepping a little bit with that, but like the linebacker play is really good. And it's good. I wouldn't say it's really good, but good enough. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think you're overstepping at all there. I think it's fair. Maybe just condense it to the guys up front, because I mean, if you look at the PFF numbers, if you watch the film, you dice it up any way you want to dice it up, and the interior pass rush and, run stopping ability has been one of Texas's strengths this year. And not only that, like you said, they go, 5-6 deep in those 2 interior linemen spots. So they're just missing a couple guys on the edge, like an O'Shawn Mathis, like a Drew Sanders, a couple guys.
Oh.
Texas
starting to lose Shane a little bit here.
Better lines in the country.
There we go. Okay. So, yeah, I think it's interesting though to look at like some of the defensive needs for Texas in the portal, because on one hand, you got some solid pieces coming back. Like even though the interior of the defensive line loses a lot, because you're going to lose Tavondre Sweat. You're probably going to lose Moro Jomo. I think he can come back for another year, but like, it doesn't sound like he's probably going to leave on a high note. He can probably be a day 3 pick in the NFL draft right now. And I don't know if coming back for another year would really help him out at all in regard to his draft stock. You're losing Keandre. You get back Alfred Collins and then Byron Murphy, and I feel really good about Byron Murphy. I wrote about Alfred Collins yesterday about how, like, he's starting to show a little bit more consistency lately. Like, we're not talking about an Alfred Collins that's, like, showing flashes. We're talking, like, at least if you look at some of the numbers, and, like, he's not really missing tackles. He's making some hustle plays down the field. Like, he's showing up each down in run defense. It's not just that he's, like, making these, like, crazy interior pass rush moves, or that he's, like, creating havoc in the most athletic way possible, but then like he's taking 5 or 10 plays off. Like he's going at it every down now. So I like that, but I'd like to see more of it to close out the season. we got a strong interior defensive line, like from this recruiting class and then the previous one too. You're like guys like Jere Bledsoe. I'm losing one of them. You do have a really strong interior defensive line presence for a good while now. I mean, Sydir Mitchell coming in, I really like that kid. So from that perspective, maybe they go out and get one D tackle if there's like a really, really talented guy that shows up in the portal, but it's not going to be the priority. Edge is going to be because, I mean, yeah, you lose Ovi, but either way, you'd like to upgrade. And then, I mean, this is where we can bring in the recruiting conversation a little bit, where it's like maybe if you land a guy like Colton Vosick or Cecilia Khan, I don't think would be ready to take over edge duties immediately, but like Colton Vosick at that point, you'd feel better about like splitting reps with him, Finkley, Ethan Burke. That's eventually what you would want that to look like. But to the same note, if you've got an all-conference type guy showing up in the portal that's an edge rusher, you got to go out and get them immediately. So I'll close it out on this for like just talking about the positional needs on defense is like we saw last week what the lack of depth, or at least lack of proven depth at safety can do when Anthony Cook gets hurt. And then, you know, you kind of have some coverage bust from Keaton Crawford. Jalen Gilbo gets hurt. Michael Taff has to end up taking a lot of the reps at safety. And I mean, Taff is a really, really, really good find for a walk-on. There's no doubt about that. But like, he's not Anthony Cook, and he's not what ideally you would want for any of your long-term safeties. So I think like safety talent is usually pretty abundant in the portal. You can go out and get a starting caliber safety. They're more abundant than say an edge rusher or even like a quarterback. So I would feel more confident about that. I think they're going to be looking there. Cornerback though, they might still be looking. You lose Deshaun Jameson. And so I don't know after the loss of Deshaun Jameson, and this is more of a conversation we can get to come next offseason, but I mean, do you think corner is a place where Texas is going to be looking in the portal?
So my thoughts on the portal as you're an analyst.
So to kind of pick this up here, I like if we're looking at cornerback in the portal, cornerback is probably one of the more abundant positions that you're going to see in the portal year in and year out. You can also get a lot of guys that are going to be versatile enough to play at safety or cornerback that you can go out and sorry about that, running some technical difficulties there, but I wanted to pick back up. We were talking about, kind of the portal conversation here and some of the DB depth concerns that Texas could be facing next offseason. I'd mentioned, kind of I think safety is going to be an obvious portal area for Texas to address, but like cornerback's going to be really interesting. I know when we started running into some of the technical difficulties there, Shane, you were kind of talking about the DBs, so I kind of pass it back to you.
Yeah, so obviously one of the more important positions on the field in what has turned into a very, pass-heavy college football landscape where you're going to need to stop the pass and you're going to need to be able to pick up yards through the air yourself. But obviously Texas they'll be losing Deshaun Jameson, which is going to be a pretty significant loss. I think Ryan Watts is eligible to enter the draft if he'd like. I assume he'd come back. Do you have? Yeah. So I mean that's big news. We saw what happens when Watts is off the field, not very good. So that's good that Watts is going to have one of those spots locked down. But the problem lies what happened when Watts is off the field. Guys like Austin Jordan, Jameer Johnson getting more run and really don't look like they're ready to play, starting corner snaps. Obviously Johnson's got a good amount of reps this season, but unless he really improves down the stretch this year and through the offseason, I don't know how comfortable I'd be with him as a starting corner next year. I think there's a hope inside the program and from fans that freshman Terrence Brooks takes a big step here. But that being said, you can't rely on, one guy, boom or bust, to make that jump, which is why I think it's important that Sarkisian targets defensive back, specifically corner, in the transfer portal, because there are going to be a lot of guys that become available, whether they were group of 5 players that are looking for a grad transfer year, or maybe disgruntled Power 5 players. I'm sure we'll get into a couple later on, but I think that's a spot where you're going to have a pick of some guys, and I think it'd be smart to go and get a couple. I mean, I'm blanking on his name, but last season Texas had the cornerback from the portal. He was from, where is he from? He's from a G5 school, but he played pretty well.
Oh, is that Ennis Rakestraw?
No. Let me see. I'm blanking on the name, but it was they brought him up from the G5 level, maybe from somewhere in Louisiana, and he ended up playing pretty well last season as kind of like not a starting guy, but as like a 3rd, 4th rotation in there.
Where did he end up going?
I think he just left, exhausted his eligibility.
Oh,
you'll know the name. I mean, it was one of the probably got the 4th most amount of snaps at
you're talking about Darian Dunn. My bad.
Yeah, Darian Dunn. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I forgot about him. Yeah, that's true. He was. Like, he wasn't bad.
Yeah, he wasn't like a game changer, but you need guys like Darian Dunn in there who have played a good amount of college football, who can at least hold the fort down and not make crucial errors.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think I will say I think Diamante's been better this year, but yeah, Darian Dunn had that kind of like Diamante Tucker Dorsey effect, where it's just a stabilizing, like senior, certain leadership, certain like consistency that is hard to replace. And he just seemed to be like a cohesive, kind of like a team guy. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, worst comes to worst, you get a guy like that. Best case scenario, you go out and land a true lockdown guy who can take away one side of the field, and then you have him paired with Watts, and that turns what was a sort of a weakness into a strength. But I think internal development is going to be big, but in today's day and age, you can supplement that with a transfer ad or two. And I think Sark will be able to mix and match that pretty well, because as of right now, I'm not confident in really anyone besides Watts in a starting role come 20.
No, that's completely fair. And I mean, well, I guess they've done a lot of mixing and matching. So I guess you could slide Jade back into a field corner spot, but I think you'd like to keep him at nickel. Unless you're ready to put a lot on Malik Muhammad, I don't think that him coming in right away having to start. I mean, maybe like compete him for reps, but we can get into this later also. But yeah, maybe Denver Harris. But I don't even know how I feel about the whole Denver Harris situation right now until more comes out on kind of what happened. He's indefinitely suspended because, I mean, maybe A&M tries to bring him back, or maybe he just straight up enters the portal. This seems like a situation where you're going to see him show up in the portal in like anywhere between December and March. But yeah, we do need to be better at developing at corner.
Yeah, it's been a bit of an issue because the talent has been there. The past since the Herman era, the past 4 seasons. And they have the athletes, the guys with the measurables, but then they're really not molded into anything great. And it's kind of been a turnstile of a position, over the past half decade. So it would be nice, which is, I mean, the beauty of the portal. Obviously, there's going to be thousands upon thousands of names in there this offseason, like nothing we've ever seen before. So it'll be interesting to see how the staff goes about it. But that's why I'm not. It's nice to add the major impact guys, but if we add a guy like a Darian Dunn, obviously not specifically, but an older player who can come in, plug some holes while developing the younger guys, that's almost a best case scenario. You mentioned Malik Muhammad, who has the talent and measurables to come in and compete on the outside right away. So if you can get a good balance there, that's put your program in the best upward trajectory chance to flourish.
That is true. Yeah. And I mean, the last thing I'll say on cornerback, because the play was really good at that position until the Oklahoma State game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't just blame the safeties on what happened in that game. Like Deshaun Jameson, I don't think I've ever seen, at least, well, I probably have, but I don't think I've seen Deshaun Jameson tackle that poorly in a long time. So, yeah, they're gonna need help, but it's good that there's like help on the way, because this DB class is like, as long as we can keep the guys together like Derek Williams, like Malik Muhammad, this DB class is going to be real solid for 2023. I'll turn the attention to the offensive side of the ball now, and there's two positions that I think are really interesting if we'll hit the portal. I mean, obviously we're not for quarterback, but running back and wide receiver. I'll get your take first. Do you think we hit the portal for either of those positions?
Running back, I'd like to just see it play out. I don't think there's really any need. I think there's so much talent in that room, even if Bijan and Roschon are gone. With Jaden Blue and Jonathan Brooks, potentially Cedric Baxter coming and competing in his first year, and then you're still going to have Keelan, who's going to be that scat back, and he's going to get his snaps regardless. So I'd like to see, Sark just roll with the guys he's got. Tashard Choice has proven in the short time he's been in Austin that, I mean, at least the guys like him in that room. So I got to assume he's a decent developer of talent. So I'd like to see them roll with Brooks, Blue, Baxter, and Robinson, because I really do believe there's someone in the Texas landscape that's been really high on Jonathan Brooks. But I think he could be, the next great back, just from the little we've seen in even this season and, in spring practices and stuff. I really like Jonathan Brooks. Thinks he gets a knock for playing at a lower level in high school. But wide receiver, definitely. If you look at and it's been like this for a while. If you look at Texas, the wide receiver room on paper, a lot of 4 stars, like a 5-star sprinkled in. But then when you go game by game, the production just doesn't seem to be there. I don't think you can blame it all on Sarkisian only targeting his couple top players. Like, I think if guys like Troy O'Meary, and one name that, Jaden Alexis is another good one. If they were playing really well in practice, like, they'd be on the field, they'd be getting more targets. So Troy O'Meary's special case with the 2 knee injuries. But I mean, one guy that always stood out to me, this is more in the Herman era, was Alvonte Woodard. You'd look at, his recruiting database, and it was like, this guy's going to be a good Power 5 starter. Not only did he not really achieve anything in Austin, but he didn't get any opportunities. So I don't know what happened behind, like, on the practice field, but it seems like there's a lot of that, a lot of like empty talent that isn't getting put to use. So I'd like to see Texas target a Jordan Whittington, like, slot receiver, a guy who you can go to on third down when it's 3rd and 6 and you need a first down. I don't think they really need a big play guy. It'd be nice, but I don't see him going after a Jordan Addison type person and paying a 7 figures for a guy. But getting an older veteran slot receiver can fill Whittington's shoes, can calm Ewers down, be a safety blanket type guy, and just kind of a stabilizer for the offense would be a solid add at receiver. But I think receiver much more than running back is where I would look in the portal.
Yeah, so much for me hinges on the health of Isaiah Nayor by the time spring ball comes around next year, because like, if he's recovering, like you've seen Jaden Alexis recover and like you've seen Troy O'Meary recover from multiple knee injuries, like, you need to find another guy, because at that point you are in the hole, because we don't have Jonah Wilson anymore. You're in the hole for boundary and for slot. We got some solid guys coming in, but we're planning on having Jonte play behind Worthy, and I mean, I guess Brennan Thompson could take over in the slot, but like they've been again playing him at the X. So like he's not playing slot. I was expecting him to, but he's not. And so I don't know, maybe that changes. Ajayi Hall has turned into a really interesting but familiar situation for him where it's like something is going on there that the coaching staff is not happy with him, and it seems like he might be in the boat for strike two because you don't just get in this situation where your head coach comes out midweek, says you're in the midst of a redshirt year after your snaps were on uptick previously without doing something wrong there in the meantime. Kind of, yeah. And so, man, yeah, wide receiver, there's so many like moving pieces to that like I think you're gonna like, and just with God, how many wide receivers did we get out of the portal last year? If you include Gabe, what was it, Sushler? Four.
Yeah.
So we got Tark, Milton, Ajayi Hall, Isaiah Neyor, yeah, and Gabe, and then you get Jaleel Billingsley too. So you get 5 receivers essentially. I mean, because I don't think we're going to be I don't think tight end's going to be a priority by any means. Because God knows we're like, if you include the Vanderbilt commit, Kamorian Pimpton that we hosted a couple weeks ago, we are looking for a 3 tight end class potentially, like Jeff Banks is.
Yeah.
And so, and you already got Gunnar Helm, Juan Davis. Jaleel could come back for another year, and then Jatavian Sanders. That's insane. And so, I mean, you're like, what do we be, like 6 or 7 deep at tight end? Holy crap.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I honestly think you're going to see, I was thinking about that today. I think you might end up seeing a guy like Juan Davis enter the portal, like a Jared Wiley situation, because like just lack of playing time. And sorry, I'm rambling here, but I want to take a moment to say, like, I remember doing an article about 2 years ago where I was talking about guys that were on Portal Watch, and I got blasted for it. I got absolutely blasted for it because they were like, how dare you talk about kids entering the portal like these are college kids? And I remember thinking at the time, like, yeah, I get where that's coming from, but like I saw where the transfer portal was headed. And so I was like, I knew this is going to become a regular thing. And now, like, we're talking about this, like, we're doing these articles every week, like, on the, like, I say we, like, that national media is doing this sort of stuff every week of, like, kids that are going to be transferring. It's just part of the conversation now. It's a testament to how much it's changed.
Exactly. It's something you have to bake in every single offseason. You're going to lose some guys. You're hopefully going to gain some guys. Mike Roach at 24/7 did a piece today. I don't know if you got eyes on it, but he documented all the players that had left, all the ones that Texas has got. And I think it was like, 33 players that had left and 12 that come in. And that makes sense for a program like Texas. You're going to lose more than you gain. But, yeah, it is interesting to see the roster attrition when it comes to the portal now that it's so easily accessible.
That is true. And, I mean, like, I almost think, too, that it's like you get these weird opportunities where a guy like a Michael Taff or like I don't know, some of these former preferred walk-ons like a Cole Lord, like our 5th string quarterback, where it's like the walk-on programs at some of these schools this is like a really deep conversation, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but it's like you're getting this new, like all these after effects of it. So like, yeah, NIL is always on the forefront of this conversation and will continue to be for sure, but yeah, there's just so much change. So, yeah, I will say to kind of wrap up the offensive conversation that, like, it wouldn't surprise me to see us kick the tires on offense. Like, I think offensive lineman's going to be a lot like D-tackle, where, like, if the right guy shows up in the portal, we'll go after because we're still going to be very green along the offensive line. But, like, I mean, I think Kyle Flood's going to start trying to move all these new guys to starting roles. And so I don't think it's going to be a huge priority. But, yeah, wide receiver, knowing that we took 4 guys last offseason, I think we're taking at least 1 or 2, depending on the health of Neyor and the Ajayi Hall situation. Running back, I think we might take 1 if the right guy appears. But running back, there's always so much talent.
Yeah, I was gonna say as much as I kind of like to see it play out, it makes sense when you're losing RB1 and RB2 to go out there and get a guy
Yeah.
who has 300 carries on him, something like that proved it. Or are you thinking more like shot in the dark talent wise, or kind of?
No, I was gonna say I think the wild card here because Keelan Robinson, I don't think he's gonna enter the NFL draft, but if he does, because he could, if
Yeah,
he does, then yeah, we're gonna hit the portal. I think a
definitely.
lot of that's dependent on Keelan just from a numbers and a leadership perspective.
Yeah, and I could see Texas hitting the portal, getting a guy, and then Brooks and Blue control 90% of the carries. I could see that
Yeah.
happen.
Well,
Which
and
is
we have
good to have.
Weisner. We have Weisner coming in next year too.
Oh yeah, yeah,
He's on the blue
that
chip. It's solid.
yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things where the more the merrier. But then I always look down the depth chart and I'm like, why is this position struggling when you have so much talent on your roster? But that's another
I wouldn't really
conversation.
say running back struggling. I mean,
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking like yeah. I'm just saying this is more hypothetical. Like when I look at wide receiver, it's like why are we
oh yeah, I was going. Yeah,
when you have all those 4 stars that don't get on the field? Like what's the issue? Like why is Kai Money playing so much? Stuff like that. But
yeah. It's a fair point. Whoa, that was weird. Okay, weird how the way the Zoom background holds. Yeah, no, it's a valid point, but I think this is a good transition point. I did the article today, and I'll link it below, and I'll mention two names that stick out to me, but I wanted to pass it over to you, Shane, then we'll bring it to a larger conversation after that. Give me one or two guys that for Texas that you think are going to be in the portal in the off season or maybe in the next couple months even.
yeah, I think you first look to that wide receiver room that we were just talking about, and I think you could see a couple leave just because of the way, like we said, the way Sark runs his offense. Where besides Worthy and Whittington for true receivers, really not that many targets out there. So I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jaden Alexis move on the offensive side of the ball. And then when it comes to the line of scrimmage, I think you could see guys like Logan Parr maybe see the writing on the wall after the class that Flood brought in 2022, and if they're not making any ground, and if they're kind of third string right now, are you really going to pass these guys who are already ahead of you that are also younger than you? I kind of had I was a fan of Logan Parr coming out of high school,
Me too.
but I think that's a guy that would be interesting to see what happens because it's just a logjam up front. So I think he's a name, and then yeah, I think those are the two on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball, I think it's more fluid, and guys are going to get their chance to play, which leads me to believe there won't be a ton of attrition. Prince Dorba is a name that we haven't talked about a ton this year, and I don't know. It's certainly not a great thing that his name hasn't been brought up, especially when Texas is pretty thin at defensive end and that jack position. So I'd be interested to kind of see how he finishes out the year, and then maybe go from there because he's a guy who has a lot of talent, but it doesn't seem that he's played to his full potential or even really gotten the opportunity until kind of earlier this season.
He, yeah, man, you mentioned a lot of interesting names there where it's I will say I've done a lot of portal stuff for us in the last year or so. Logan Parr came up. I mentioned his name today because offensive guard, we have so many offensive guards committed in the 23 class, and we have a lot of kids that can play on the inside or on the interior, and they came from the 2022 class. And 2024, again, some of the names we're offering here, and 2025, it's interior guys. Logan Parr is eligible through 2025, I do believe. And so it's just it keeps on going where I'm not saying 2024 guy. I mean, but yeah, actually maybe a 2024 guy would supplant him immediately. The point I'm trying to get at though is yeah, we're probably going to lose. We lost Jalen Garth. earlier this year. We're getting into some nitty gritty here because we're getting way down the depth chart talking about this. But like just the impact on some of these like or some of the Herb Hand guys that were recruited a few years ago. I was a huge fan of Logan Parr. I covered him at the opening in 2019 and then an O-line camp in 2018, and I liked him. Him and Hayden Connor were super close. They look good. If you go back and look at Hogan headlines, we still got some clips up of him doing work at the opening a few years ago, and he was looking pretty solid. But yeah, so I mean Hudson Card.
Yeah.
Is the elephant in the room. I think I'll be honest, I like it for him to enter the portal at this point because, like, I mean, I don't think he wants to battle Malik and Arch and Quinn. And man, he gets his degree. He can get his degree during the offseason. He played the best football of his career during that 4-game stretch in the last few weeks. And man, he hits the portal and he's automatically going to be one of like the most highly sought after. Like he can go get another Power 5 starting job right away.
Definitely.
And so he'll have his pick. I think I at this point, I think he's gone.
And I think we mentioned this on previous podcasts. You just alluded to it here. I think Texas fans, they don't want him to leave, but it's almost going to be like, okay, like so long, go win some games, like go do this thing for whatever school he ends up at, so long as it's not, another team in the Big 12.
Like it's not like TCU.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
that would be tough. I think he's going to succeed wherever he goes. So obviously that's a very blanket statement without seeing any fit or anything, but I expect Hudson Card to, play like Shane Buechele did at SMU. So I'm going to be rooting for him. And I would even go a step further and say that I think the QB room when it comes to scholarship quarterbacks is going to be down to Quinn, Arch, and Malik. I think Charles Wright is also, there's a chance he could take a step because, I mean, he's not dumb. He sees the writing on the wall. It was weird earlier this season. It got to a point where there was a chance that we were talking about Charles Wright starting a football game.
Yeah.
But with Arch enrolling in January, you're going to have Quinn a year as a starter, and Malik is going to be a year off that injury. Wright's going to see himself fourth on the depth chart, and what's the point of staying another year unless you're hoping for 2 injuries and they really don't want Arch to play and then you get your shot, but it seems unlikely. And I mean, people forget he was committed to Iowa State before Texas.
Mm-hmm.
He was a 3-star, not the highest rated quarterback, but I think he could be like a solid group of 5 guy that, puts up good numbers. So I think there's a chance that he's gone as well as Hudson.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people talked about it where it's like if Charles Wright had gone to a place like Iowa State or something about it, he has the build and he has a lot of the skills or the profile of what you would see of like a lot of the Baylor quarterbacks that have come through in recent years. Not necessarily Bohannon, but like similar to Shapen. He's got like I always bring up the name Charlie Brewer when I'm talking about Shapen, but like yeah, there's some similarities there. Anyway, I would agree to it. Yeah, the quarterback room is changing. It's obviously moving on from the Herman era.
Yeah,
did it too. So I want to take this conversation to a larger level now. I'm gonna mention some guys, but like I don't think that the portal is gonna have like the Caleb Williams and the Quinn Ewers and the Jordan Addisons. Like I don't think you're gonna see like these superstars jumping into the portal every single day. Almost it seemed as you did last year, but there's gonna be so much depth this year from what it looks like that because you're getting some of these jobs that like haven't developed talent well, like some of these programs that haven't developed talent well, that have head coaches on the hot seat that are going to end up being gone, and you're going to get a bunch of former blue chips that are freshmen and sophomores that are going to go get developed elsewhere.
Yeah.
So like this is going to be a really deep class, I think, for the portal. But let's zoom out here and take a look at like maybe some of the guys that are already in the portal, but also like who you think will end up in the portal. And this can kind of be a bold prediction type thing too. I'll go ahead and start here because I have a nice segue of like guys that are already in the portal, at least for Texas or in the Big 12, that are key to watch. Like if you're looking for some names that are already there that are starting caliber, at least for the Power Five. So a couple intriguing names. Auburn has had a lot of guys enter the portal recently. A guy named Zykevious Walker. He's a defensive tackle, former blue chip. Had some decent production the last 2 seasons, but I mean, we're talking like a high tier 4-star, and he's still got that talent, just never really got the chance to get developed. That is the type of guy where if Texas is looking to go out and get someone they can develop along the defensive line, that's the type of guy we're looking at. One that I think is really interesting for the receiving core, and this is Texas specific, but man, I think he's going to have a lot of offers. And I'll be honest, it was earlier this week that I found this name, but does Dakari Collins ring a bell?
Don't know it.
Sark offered him at Alabama. He would Clemson, 6'5", 200 pounds. Just didn't really get a shot there.
Yeah.
Probably would have, but he's a top 100 kid. We need a boundary receiver. Probably if Isaiah Neyor's not coming back, and like that's a name that I'm looking at early on. 2 other ones, Joshua Braun. I'll be honest, I don't know if there's any relation to Parker Braun here, if you remember Parker Braun.
Yeah. Yep.
But Joshua Braun is an oh yeah.
Yeah, Georgia Tech.
Josh Braun is yep. Well, I think Josh Braun was Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah, he's the best offensive lineman in the portal right now. So it would be interesting if we ended up getting both Braun brothers.
Yeah,
because he would add some size. He about a 6'6", like 310. He can play inside and out. So he's got some versatility to him. It's just like Billy Napier's starting to lose some guys to the portal already.
Yeah, that could continue with what's probably going to happen this weekend against Georgia, and down the line. I don't know if they're going to beat Florida State this year either. So
yeah,
spiral for Napier in year 1, and they just lost Cormani McClain. Not great in Gainesville right now.
Nope.
Someone who lives 2 hours south of Gainesville, who has surrounded by a lot of Gator fans. I'm not frowning about it.
Dude, they're gonna get stomped tomorrow.
Yeah. Yep. It's gonna. I think there's always that weird thought in the back of my mind, like Anthony Richardson is going to finally put it all together, but no chance. Not against Georgia. I think there might be a couple defensive touchdowns in that one, but.
Yep.
I was going through some of the names before we touch on the A&M names that are probably at the forefront of everyone's mind. It makes sense to look at schools that are either in a downward trend or are going to have a coach that's fired. I went to Auburn as well. Dylan Brooks, edge. He was the 77th ranked player in the class of 2021. So blue chip, high 4-star guy, 6'5", rangy type player. And obviously he can't enter the NFL draft, and he doesn't have a whole lot of production on the docket yet, but he's a guy that I think could come in and develop. I like his build. I mean, I love defensive ends that are big and long, like Ethan Burke, and Brooks kind of fits that mold. Wasn't a name I was aware of until I started, diving into potential transfers, but he looks like he could fit the mold of someone who could come in and play 2 seasons and have a real impact in Austin. Then I assume if you want to mention, you just wrote an article earlier today about 3 A&M guys amidst what's going on there who Texas target. Before you mention that, I was thinking I mean, there's a fair amount of linear transfers, like Power 5 to Power 5. But from a Texas perspective, I don't think we've seen like Oklahoma to Texas, Texas to Oklahoma, or like A&M to Texas, Texas to A&M. Like, have we seen, if maybe like few and far between? But I'm saying this to say that every time a Texas A&M player, is not happy, it doesn't mean just because Texas was in their top 3 coming out of high school that they're immediately going to end up. I feel like it'd be like the odds of that are happening are less. I don't know if there's any correlation there, but that's just something that I've kind of noticed.
Yeah, that's funny you bring that up because, I mean, as nice as it sounds, because like players will follow coaches, and so you'll end up getting some of that big movement, like you saw, like some of that mass migration to like LSU or USC last offseason. And like I think depending on what happens with like the Nebraska or like potentially the Auburn jobs, like you might see some of that again, but you do like it's at this point it's mostly hot seat coaches that you end up extracting a good amount of value out of. I am going back to look, but I mean you do get P5 to P5 value. Texas just hasn't extracted a whole lot of that yet. I mean, dude, look at Keontae Ingram.
Yeah, he's on the
Keontae was pretty good at USC.
Yeah, I mean now he's an Eno Benjamin kind of injury away from being like a viable fantasy starter.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
I mean, and like I'm going down the list. Jalen Green, that's a name that I think every Texas fan remembers. He was very highly touted out of high school. He wasn't bad at Texas, but he wasn't good. But he's been pretty good at Mississippi State. Like he's been a decent starter, I guess would probably be a good way to label that.
Yeah.
One guy that I haven't looked at in a little while, Kenyatta Watson at Georgia Tech.
Oh, that's an interesting name because I remember I was mad that he got away. That was
Yeah, same, but he hasn't done much there.
that's the kind of corner that this staff likes, big, lengthy.
Yeah.
Make plays on the ball, but yeah, I don't see any, like, obviously there's some TCU movement and Jared Wiley being the most recent, but I don't think there's been any A&M to Texas or vice versa or Oklahoma, which it would be nice if Denver Harris, Evan Stewart, Marshall, they just hopped on the highway and came on on down to the 40 acres. I think so, but I don't think it's going to work as easily as we think, even if they do end up entering the portal.
The reason why I get optimistic about it is because when there's coach rumblings, that's the one thing you can extract value out of.
Okay.
And so that's why I mentioned 3 names because I think there's some Texas fans that are going 10 or 12 deep right now talking about the A&M transfers they want. But I mean, I don't think it's that simple. When guys are getting suspended left and right and you're kind of hearing the rumblings that you have from that program, I mean, you got to consider on one side, there's going to be a lot of downside to that where it's like they're not like we're seeing with this Ajayi Hall. Like he didn't come into Texas and he's like, oh, like I figured out everything off the field right away. Like it's just, I mean, these are like 18, 19-year-old kids. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
Kids make mistakes. It happens. And so but to the same note, like if you get a situation where Evan Stewart, Denver Harris are in the portal, I think Texas is going to do everything they can to get after them. And if you had to ask me of like, does either Denver Harris or Evan Stewart enter the portal, I would put it at 80 to 85% chance that you say yes. I'm not saying both, but either one. So
yeah, it's fair. I think it's very fair. I would just say a couple weeks ago I was more bullish on it being Stewart, whereas now I think it's more flipped to, I would say it's 65-35 towards Harris. But it'll be interesting to see how Stewart is featured with Wegman, because if he goes out and has a 10-catch game in a win against Ole Miss this weekend, that number's like 10% chance he enters the portal. Like if him and Wegman create like a connection right away or down the stretch, it's a good chance he won't enter. And I mean, for as bad as the A&M passing attack has been, Stewart has been like the constant when it comes to targets and receptions. So and in a pretty like a stagnant offense, he's still getting targeted 10 or 12 times, and he's had a fair share of solid games. So I'm slowly starting to push that thought to the back burner, just because I was kind of excited earlier in the season. I was like, yes, Evan Stewart and Worthy, like this is going to be crazy. But I'm a little less bullish on that.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, so Evan Stewart's obviously going to be a big name to watch. Denver Harris at this point, he's suspended indefinitely, so that's a name to watch. Like, there are going to be names that pop up, but like I'm going to wrap up here with my piece of like, I'm going to go with like potentially disgruntled players that could be interesting, like of guys leaving because they're not happy with the first year head coach, or that like their head coach could be on the way out. Miami is a weird one to watch right now. Where like I think you're going to see a lot of Miami players in the portal this offseason. Michael Redding Jr. is one to me that's interesting. Frank Ladson, a couple of the wide receivers there, because like with like Mario Cristobal recruits quarterbacks pretty well. I don't think Tyler Van Dyke's going to be there very long. That's not relevant to Texas, but like, and you might see Tyler Van Dyke in the portal. I don't think his Miami like he was like he had the hype of being one of the best quarterbacks in the Power 5 this season, and he's injured right now. So, man, that fell off the rails fast. I think one name that is interesting. I don't know if he might be eligible for the draft right now, but one name that I've been keeping an eye on a little bit is he's eligible for the draft, but if he ends up sticking around, I think there's a good to fair chance you could see Tank Bigsby entering the portal.
I think I don't, because I think there was a talk of him sitting out the season and just preparing. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's kind of hard to predict, which is kind of the fun part about it, though. You know,
it is
come up with these hypotheticals, but it is tough. It's one of those things that you go name by name, kind of as they come in, is the easier way to do it, and then see like, does Texas have a chance with this guy? Is there any connection here? What was it? What the recruitment look like out of high school and stuff like that? But we mentioned this at the top of the show. This offseason, I actually think people aren't even ready. Like you say transfer portal, and everyone's like, okay, yeah. I think this offseason is going to be absolutely crazy when it comes to the transfer portal and the amount of players we see in it.
It is. It's going to end up like it's almost going to be like an NBA free agency that's not top heavy, but you have a lot of like core starter guys.
Yeah.
We're starting to move into that phase where it's like, because we're getting a lot of the jobs that are going to be opening up this year. Like, I think you're going to see some group of 5 jobs opening up that are like your USFs and your Arkansas States of the world, where it's like you got talent there and you got some guys that are all conference level performers that are not going to be happy and want to look elsewhere. And that's where it's like you can go pick up like a quality starter at linebacker that's not going to be a world beater, but he's just good.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think Texas needs those players on their roster. Like those are glue guys that fill gaps, that raise your ceiling, not what they do specific, not like on their specific talent, but on what they do to help everyone else around them. And Texas just needs players who have been productive playing college football, and instead of relying on names and numbers that you pull from high school. But yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting. And transfer portal is, I'm pro transfer portal, and you know it makes our coverage of the team even more fun. You know, more things to look into and write about and talk about.
Yeah, that is true. And I'm gonna leave this at. I'm gonna give my top. I'll leave it at this. This will be my bold prediction. I think these are gonna be the top three quarter. Like if I had to say today who the top three quarterbacks in the portal are gonna be come January, I'm gonna say DJ Uiagalelei, Tyler Van Dyke, and Hudson Card.
I don't disagree. I mean, you look everywhere. They got you got Quinn Ewers, you got Jake Garcia, and you got Cade Klubnik, who are going to push those guys right on out. And yeah, the only one I'd say maybe because of DJ's build does he test out the draft? But no, I agree. I think that's
Is he draft eligible this year already?
yeah, because he was in Bryce Young's class.
Holy Jesus, he is. I forget about that. Yeah, I don't.
No, yeah,
I would not try to test the draft right now if I were him.
yeah. The thing is, if he did, he'd probably be a late round flyer. But if he transferred to a lower level Power 5, like not of Clemson's level, and has a 30 touchdown, 6 interception season, he's a first round pick just based off of his build and intangibles and stuff and the measurables. But yeah, I agree. I think that's
What are the odds that he's UCLA's starting quarterback next year?
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Oh man, I always throw around these wild ideas. I've done that since college.
I mean, he's from out there, and he feels like the perfect guy that like all the hype out of high school. Everyone's talking about him this year because of potential controversy, and then he just goes to UCLA, flies under the radar, has a great season for an 8-4 Chip Kelly team, and is like a late first rounder. And you're like, what the hell just happened in the 2024 NFL draft? But,
yeah, and then in 2 years, he's facing Devin Brown and the Ohio State Buckeyes.
yeah, no, yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I like that take. Everyone wants to hear the quarterback, so I think that's a good way to leave it off.
Any hot takes for you for the transfer portal to leave it off?
Yeah, I don't know. Nothing super bold from me. I think it goes back to kind of my overarching point that I've been making is I think it's important for Texas to just plug holes with guys who have been competent at the collegiate level before. You have talent on this roster. Don't try to go and hit a bunch of home runs. Hit a bunch of singles. Get guys who can come in, give you solid snaps, and then trust your recruiting and the underclassmen that Sark has brought in to really be those difference makers. Yeah, so not bold. That's probably the opposite of bold, but I think that'd be my strategy. Obviously, Sark's going to go after some big names, but I think if he supplements those with 5 or 6 just solid, like you said, former G5 all-conference guys, that's the way to go in this cycle.
Yeah, and hope for better injury luck, but go get you some like Isaiah Nayor caliber players.
Exactly. 100%. Yes, I agree.
Yep. Well, I think that's a good way to leave it off. So, I mean, yeah, I don't want to get like too excited about the portal because it's like it becomes exhausting after a while. It's like covering NBA free agency where it's like after a while, it's just like, okay, I'm just looking forward to the season and how all these guys settle in. But yeah, no, I mean, it's always an interesting time. It adds a lot to the off season between like December and May. It adds a whole nother phase to the college football offseason that wasn't there before. So it'll be fun. And I mean, like, yeah, it'll be a busy time. But anyway, I gotta actually get up and run here before too long. But yeah, we'll be back early next week. I mean, Texas on a bye week this week, but Kansas State week. So we get into a big time matchup right away. But yeah, we'll have Tarek back next week. I'll be doing a show with Shane, so we'll get right back into the swing of things. But for me, Andrew Miller, editor of Hook'emHeadlines.com. For Shane, Trevor over at Hook'emHeadlines.com. Put some links to some of this stuff in the description below. But yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya.
Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.